Alright, before we get into this video, I would just like to say thank you guys for getting my most recent video up to 17 views in a relatively short time. Um, I know 17 views is like not a lot, but for my channel that's pretty good. Um, and I wasn't sure. I was kind of surprised by this. And like I wasn't sure if that was the video I wanted to do well, but I appreciate the support nonetheless. So, alright, so welcome back to Chickens. This video is going to be the first episode in a series that I'm going to be calling Heresy Hunting. Now, I will say the next episode will probably be a while away because I'm not sure when I'm going to read the next book for this. So, originally, I had an idea for this series, and originally it was gonna be more like my just out of curiosity video, where it was like part reading vlog, part more in-depth review. But I decided that for this series it'd probably be better to just have it as a review. So, yeah, and of course, with like this whole the title of it being heresy hunting, most of the time it probably won't be I probably won't be confronting actual heresy, but just it's tongue in cheek. It's kind of fun. So or I don't know. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first book the book that we are going to be covering in today's episode is How You Can Be Sure You Will Spend Eternity with God by Erwin W. Lutzer. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Um, so I first found out about this book in grade 12. Um, this church, they were giving away books from their library for free. And so I took a look at the tables where they had all these books. And I remember a lot of those books were about the Da Vinci Code, I think mostly critiquing it. But then I saw this book and I felt compelled to pick it up because, um, well, actually, throughout all of high school, I was kind of struggling with assurance of my salvation because of things I was going through and um yeah. Um, so I remember um at the time when I picked it up, I think I read the introduction and part of the first chapter, and then all these years later, when I felt more secure in my salvation, I thought that this would be good for heresy hunting, um, because I know that no matter what a book says, I know what it says in scripture, and like all these things. Now, if I thumbnailed this video how I want to thumbnail, I would be saying in it that I didn't expect this. And what I didn't expect was that most of this book is actually correct. Like, the main thing about, like, how you can be sure how you know you have salvation is if you've accepted the free gift of salvation by believing that Jesus died on the cross and that you are not trusting in your own works, which that is very true, very scripturally backed and stuff. Uh, so at first I wasn't sure if I was gonna recommend this with that because I thought, well, that's not that different from what people are saying nowadays, at least in the circles I've been in. But then I got to chapter 7, which I think, let's see what chapter 7 is called, For Doubters Only, and it addresses kind of the different reasons why people would doubt their salvation. So I'd recommend this book because of that. Um, so yeah, so those are all like the positives about it. The green tabs are usually my things I agreed with, but I do have some critiques for this book. So the first thing that came to mind, this is more so like in the first half of the book, was the author's um negative portrayal of religion. Now, how he defines religion is, like a works-based belief system, like doing all these like spiritual rituals to save yourself. That's how he defines religion, and it's kind of, and I wanted to address this because it kind of ties into one of the phrases that people say more nowadays of Christianity. Oh, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. And that is, I don't like the intentions of that statement. It's meant to reject legalism and, like, yeah, try to separate Christianity from all other religions. But in saying these kinds of things, it gives people a false understanding of what religion actually is. Like, the simple definition of religion is just a system of belief in and worship of a god or gods. So Christianity sorry, still falls under that definition. So um so yeah, that was another critique I had. And then there was something in the last chapter which I'm just not sure what to think of this. So sorry, I'm just reading it to try to talk about this. So it's talking about, so the last chapter is kind of like a question and answer kind of thing. And one thing is about Christians denying Christ. And yeah, and does that show that salvation isn't permanent, and if we want it, like, yeah, but the author said, in response to that, was that yes, even some true Christians can deny Christ. Like he gave the example of, well, Peter denied Christ, and then he said, well, it's safe to assume that some true Christians have died in denial of Christ. But he argues that those people are still saved. They'll just be one of those cases of, they won't hear, well done, good and faithful servant, and they won't get to reign with Christ, but they'll still be saved. And then what was yeah, and he was talking about, like, I can't find it, but he was talking about, like, the scripture of like in Revelation of, like, oh, the works were destroyed by fire, but the man's soul will still be saved, and like that kind of thing. And like, I'm just not sure what to think of that. I probably need to look into that more. So, but yeah. So other than that, this is a pretty good book, and um, I thought that since this book was published almost 30 years ago, and that it's not a very popular book, I thought that this book would be out of print by now, and um, so I wanted to recommend this, but I was like, oh, are people going to get a hold of it? But it seems, from what I found, that you can still get this book on Christian Book, and maybe on Amazon, although when I looked at the link to the Amazon page from Goodreads, the title was right, but the cover showing the book was a different book. So, like, maybe it's probably better to get it through Christian Book. So yeah, overall recommended on Goodreads. I gave it 4 stars because of those critiques that I had. But anyways, this was more correct than I expected. So yeah. Alright, that is it for this first episode. Hope you enjoy it. And goodbye.